Now, rolling blackouts have become an almost daily occurrence. Eskom's unable to maintain its infrastructure and provide enough generating capacity, and corruption and mismanagement remain rife at the utility. Joining us now to discuss this is OUTA Executive Director Stefanie Fick. Stefanie, good morning and thank you very much for your time. You know, the reality is energy is arguably the biggest risk to our economy right now, which many argue then warrants this greater focus on how Eskom is run. But not just focusing on how it's run today, but the genesis of the problem, which some say can be confined to political decisions that were taken back then. Now, if we were to interrogate those decisions taken back then, some want to take us as far back as the Thabo Mbeki era, saying he was reportedly someone that was nudged that the power plants built in the 60s were getting quite old and that he should explore part privatization, so it's not just government's money being utilized. But then it said those on the left of the political spectrum contended that such amounted to commodifying a basic need. We then opted for the route we are in now, which was to build Kusile and Madupi project, which characterized or has been characterized by poor management and corruption. We know the story with state capture. 400 billion later, we are generating less than 50% of electricity. Could this be confined to politics? Were there bad political decisions made with good intentions, though, perhaps?
Yeah, let's leave out bad and good intentions. I agree with you. And I do think that the current problem, I think it's not a simple problem. But if you ask me, I think a lot of it is about more political interference, if you want to call it that. I think to get load shedding to end, to bring an end to load shedding, requires, for example, the executive to go think about, but how do we increase Eskom's, generation capabilities? And I think, depending on who you talk to, but I don't think it's that difficult. It is about making it, creating an environment for more generation capacity to be part of the grid. And you're talking about renewables. I know that there's people against renewables, for renewables, and that's also a whole debate. But in order to supplement the generation capacity that Eskom is unable to provide for various reasons, which I think one is political interference, is to make provision for maybe 15,000 megawatt, 10,000 if I read an article by Chris Yellen that said, let's make available 10,000 megawatt of power in solar PV and wind, new wind capabilities, and then 5,000 megawatts of battery. And that will alleviate the problem that Eskom is facing currently immediately. And then I think if we are talking about politics, I think what is, the most threatening is the fact that it appears that corruption and mismanagement is still continuing, and the fact that there has been no accountability. We've just heard from the Zondo Commission to what extent Eskom was targeted when it came to state capture. And what has been done? So that is also a worry. So from a statutory point of view, so NERSA needs to make it, needs to create an environment and needs to give generation capacity to for example, IPPs in order to do this.
Now, Stefanie, I know that for some, it seems context is key, because every time when Eskom speaks to citizens, they want to give us the context at how we arrived at this place. I know that you're saying perhaps it's time to focus on generation capacity, that if we've got these plants and we're only generating at less than 50, then we've got a problem. But they still maintain that context is key, because even if we look at the current price we're paying for electricity, when we're seeing these increases, if we're saying it's increased by 500% over a period of 10 years. This is because of those poor decisions that were taken. Because if we spend 400 billion on building Madupi and Kusile, then they've had to now factor those losses, and then the ordinary citizen is paying. So wouldn't you say that those type of decisions have brought us to this point right now, where you've got electricity, apart from being unreliable, it's also expensive?
Exactly. I really do think that the fact that, currently South Africans are struggling, and we also need to see that in perspective, because, there's arguments for and against the fact that, yes, we still have cheap electricity, yes, it's extremely expensive. But let's say where we were, coming from is electricity is going up. If electricity goes up, everything else goes up. If petrol goes up, everything else goes up. So what is happening is that we are now seeing, may I just say this, we are now seeing the consequences of corruption. Not only the consequence of corruption in Eskom, but in all our SOEs. And, it creates an environment that the causes of corruption has got an impact on each and every one of us. So, there are people that are saying, I don't want to hear this debate about Eskom because I don't even have electricity. Yes, there are communities out there that still do not have electricity. And because of corruption, we do not have not only not enough money to make sure that we have enough generation capacity for the people on the grid currently, we also do not have the money to socially go look at how can we uplift certain communities. So sure, I agree with you wholeheartedly. The decisions, the mismanagement, the corruption of the past, the state capture of Eskom as a state-owned entity has created the circumstances, has created the background for where we are currently.
So the big word, the big P, privatization, is it really worth looking into? Yes, we talk renewables, but is that privatization conversation still open for debate? I mean, here you are as civic society organizations. Do you think it's one that could be had at this point, given that we have reached crisis point?
I think it's always important, whether you're talking about privatization or not. I think it is vital as civil society, business and government to work together. It's easy to sit here and to criticize, and there's enough to criticize government for the way that an SOE like Eskom was governed. But how do we solve the problem? And it's easy to criticize. We need to look at solutions. Now, I don't think I'm an expert and know enough in order to say, yes, go full out privatization. I think what we need to do is a balanced view yet again. So let's sit around a table and let government, yes, they have the capabilities in government. There are people that has got an enormous amount of knowledge, but also sit around a table, have the conversation and what is the best solution. And I don't think the solution is necessarily let's privatize Eskom tomorrow. I really think that the simple solution, and I agree with Christian, that the simple solution is just to create more generation capacity now, so that there's more available electricity on the grid and that we can stabilize the grid. And that just means to open up business to independent power producers, not taking over the grid or, privatizing the whole lot. So that Eskom can manage itself better, give Eskom the time to clean up and make sure that the people that are there will run Eskom in the best interest of all South Africans. But then in the meantime, try and solve the electricity crisis that was created by various factors. But if you can easily within the next, year or 2 years alleviate this problem, why not? But what were we thinking about? Car powership. Now, I know that we are tackling NERSA on their decision to give car powership distribution licenses for electricity. But sure, is that the best solution to the problem? It's a 20-year solution. It's going to cost the electricity user an enormous amount of money. So I think we need to look at more cost-effective solutions. That is really, and I want to reiterate that is in the best interest of all South Africans.
Now, Stefanie, just before I let you go, I think this is a matter that is probably within your purview as well as a civic organization. The matter around the monumental flag, 22 million rand. It's a big debate now. It seems the minister has turned around on his decision. They're looking to review that decision to have that monumental flag. So, as OUTA, what do you make of that?
Well, I think it's the idea is, I think, brilliant. I think what the minister has said, about, bringing people together. I just think that the timing is a bit misplaced. We are really going through a very tough time, economically, socially. We have an unemployment rate that is skyrocketing. Our economy, again, is struggling. We're sitting with load shedding. The petrol price is going to go up. Each and everybody is struggling. We are unable to provide proper health services to the people. The education, is each and every child in this country getting a proper education? And I think the answer is no. So there's so many other things we are struggling with. I think that 22 million could be put to better use somewhere else. Let's look at what is a crisis currently. A flag is a nice to have, but I think we need urgently so many other things. So I'm glad that the minister, sort of changed his mind and realized that a 22 million flag project is maybe not applicable currently.